As a child, I used to act in TV serials. So I was a child actor in some of the famous media houses. I always felt that people around me inspire me a lot. Even now, students inspire me a lot. And some of my professors were just phenomenal. The way they would come to the class and start teaching. And I didn't really realize I'm a girl till I entered engineering. Because when you are in an engineering class, you see all boys around you, very few girls. I was a student at IISc Bangalore, a researcher at MIT. Then I was invited faculty in Europe. But I always had this, we call it, I don't know, it's a kira in the mind, right? It's like you want to do something for the country. I had that activist energy in me.
Hello, and welcome everyone to the very first episode of the Amalthya podcast. I'm Vikramaditya, and I'm excited to start this journey as we dive into the world of technology, innovation, and the minds that will shape our future. Today is a very special day. It is International Women's Day for the people who are watching. So, what better way to celebrate International Women's Day than to shed spotlight onto women in STEM? For our first episode, we have a very special guest, Professor Pallavi Bharadwaj from IIT Gandhinagar. She is doing groundbreaking work in renewable energy, from improving solar panels to optimizing battery storage in electric vehicles. Her research is helping shape a clearer, more sustainable future. Today, we'll explore her journey, the challenges and breakthroughs in clean energy, and her thoughts on women in STEM. And of course, we'll have some fun rapid fire rounds. Tune in for that. So let's get started. Professor Bharadwaj, welcome to the podcast. It is an honor to have you here.
Thank you, Vikram. I'm happy to interact with everybody who's watching this.
Before we dive into your research, let's start with something fun. If you weren't a professor or a researcher, what profession would you have chosen?
Very interesting. I'm sure I would be doing something for the environment, maybe a social worker or an environment activist, something like that. Don't cut trees and something like that.
So an activist.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. What is a fact about yourself, a little factoid, which people would be surprised hearing about you?
Yeah, so as a child, I used to act in TV serials. I've also done a couple of movies. I will not tell you which ones. So I was a child actor in some of the famous media houses. I did that
So
till
task for the viewers to find out.
till 5th or 6th standard, and then I was like too much into studies to do that anymore.
Okay, let's go back to the beginning. What inspired you to get into the field of renewable energy? Was there any particular moment, an event in your life, or a person?
Interesting. Yeah. So I am from Delhi. I was born and brought up in Delhi, and very near to my house there was a thermal power plant, which is typically powered with coal. And the way to spot them is you would always see black smoke coming out of them. Okay, so even in Gandhinagar you see three
Yeah.
big, right? So whenever I would step out of the house, I would not be very comfortable breathing. And every summer we would go to hill stations, and then there is so much, air to breathe, so fresh. So I would think, why is this, like from childhood, I would think, why is this like this? The environment is not so pure. And on some, irritating my elder sister, my parents, I got to know it's because of the energy and because of vehicles on the road. So I thought, can we make our energy requirements? There's no way that modern citizens can reduce their energy requirements. We need this electricity to power everything. We need transportation. We can't go on belgaris anymore. That is also exploitation to some extent of the animals. So we can't reduce the energy needs, but can we make them better in terms of what sources are powering us? So that's where I started delving into renewable energy like solar, etc.
Oh, that's a very interesting story. Were there any role models or mentors in your life who guided you in this journey?
Oh, yeah, very much so. So I was, like I said, born and brought up in Delhi, and many of my uncles and aunts were environment activists, and also my parents lived a very minimalistic, Gandhian sort of a way of life. That was another reason I was attracted to Gandhinagar when I decided to move back to India. So I always felt that people around me inspire me a lot. Even now, students inspire me a lot. They're very bright here. Tagline for IIT Gandhinagar. But yes, my teachers were my role models, my parents, my sibling, now my husband and my family. my students, everybody inspired me every single day to be a better human being, to do more work for the environment, for the country. And the forming year, so to say, like you have now, I was a student at ISC Bangalore, and some of my professors were just phenomenal. The way they would come to the class and start teaching, and I would feel that I'm in love with research. So that was the turning point of my life when I thought the best way for me to contribute to all my passion would be probably through teaching and research. So that's how I decided to work. The area was defined very well ahead in my life as a child, like renewable energy would be what I want to do. But how? This happened when I was in IC Bangalore.
I relate very much to the fact of like looking up to the professors. There are many, many professors over here who have such knowledge, who have such a way of speaking. It's like they are our role models over here. So, but every journey comes with its challenges, especially for women in STEM. What were some of the challenges which you faced and how did you overcome them?
Yeah, this is very interesting. So, I didn't really realize I'm a girl till I entered engineering. Because when you are in an engineering class, you see all boys around you, very few girls. And then in our hostel in Delhi, there were restrictions like after 9 p.m., you cannot be outside the hostel. So any kind of teams like student teams for various competitions, you can't really be a part of. Your name would be there, but all the work would happen after hours, right?
Yeah.
And you cannot be a part of it because you have to be in the hostel by then. So that's when I realized there are restrictions of being a girl. And then I moved on to Bangalore for my master's, to ISC. And then again, I was the only girl in my field of research, and all the boys would do their assignments together. And I would be all alone doing my assignment in the girls' hostel. But that gave me a lot of opportunity to grow as a student, because I was on my own, right? I had no support system whatsoever from the colleagues, from the teachers. Of course, you learn in the class, but then learning on my own really propelled the exponential learning curve. It was very fast for me. And when I proved myself, of course, then the boys of the class would come to you for assignments and things like that. You make a study group, etc. But wherever I went, being a girl, I had to prove myself. Girls are not only pretty. I had to break that barrier. They are also very, very smart. Okay, so yeah, I had to prove myself from the very starting. But it has been a fun journey. I like it when they get surprised. Oh, you're smart. Of course.
Do you think like over time it's now easier for women to like make a breakthrough? Like for example, here in IT Gandhinagar, there's like a lack of curfews. That's a very popular part of it here.
Yeah.
I think it's better now.
Yeah. How it is, you have to ask our girls, our students, how they are, liking it. They are better judges than I am. But yes, some kind of flexibility in curriculum, in timelines, etc. You have to feel equal to succeed, right? And that should come both from the administration, but more so from the mind of a girl. So even though they told us to be inside the hostel by 9, we always knew we are better than the boys mentally, or at least at par, right? So you also have to feel you're good. From the support from the administration would come or not come. It's okay. But you have to from inside feel that you are good.
I hope many aspiring young minds would take inspiration from a story. Let's do a little shift. Let's talk about your research. You worked on many fascinating projects. Is there any recent project of yours that's like exciting you a lot?
Yeah. So, when I took the strong decision of coming back to India, so I was doing really well. I was a researcher at MIT. Then I was invited faculty in Europe. But, I always had this, we call it, I don't know, it's a kida in the mind, right? It's like you want to do something for the country. I had that activist energy in me. Desh ke liye kaam karna, like that. So the first IIT that I had applied to was Gandhinagar, and they gave me the position. I had not applied anywhere else because I had that Danish position, faculty position. But when I came here, I really like the work culture, the interdisciplinarity, the freedom that we got. And one thing very good that happened for me was I was a very interdisciplinary researcher. So I wanted to make systems which would work for India. For example, my research is on electric vehicles and renewable energy. So we thought, can we make these electric vehicle infrastructure that is made for India? Right now what is happening, we import a lot of technology from China and from the West, and when we put that in our conditions, they catch fire because they're not designed for these temperatures, for this humidity, etc. So that was one very strong motivation. And so making, like, let's say, electric vehicle chargers that would work in Indian conditions first. Second, then what is the biggest problem that we have? It is the safety, right? People are scared of buying an electric vehicle because tomorrow it can catch a fire and your 1 lakh, 2 lakh, 30 lakh, 1 crore rupees is all gone in a second. So this is a very exciting area that we have picked up. We have tremendous support from industry, again a big plus for Gandhinagar, where we work on electric vehicle safety, and this is extremely interdisciplinary effort where we leverage the power of real-time data sensing through some very advanced IoT that we have self-developed in the lab. Very, very resource, what should I say? It uses very less resource, very cheap sensing, so to say, but very effective. Then that real-time data, we use AI on it, and we are able to make the battery and the electric vehicle entire thing very, very safe. So battery safety is something that I'm very excited about right now.
Yeah, I've heard of like cases like a year or two ago of like Ola scooters catching on fire and things like that, right? So I've also heard of your work of solar panels adapting to like shades, like shading. Like, how does that really work? It's like I don't understand.
Right. So there are two ways that a solar panel. So you have to first understand that the input to a solar panel, a photovoltaic panel, is light, right? And then it heats up also. So temperature and light both kind of lead to some output there. How do you make sure you're always getting the maximum energy out of the sun with your panels is first to make a mechanical reconfiguration of the panels. Now, more often than not, it is not possible to do, right? It is on the top of your house. So much room may not be there to move it. It's also expensive. So then electrically maximizing the energy output, no matter what is the shade condition, are you always in real time extracting the maximum energy out of it? Because if these partial shading conditions, which can happen because of your neighbor's buildings, because of a monkey sitting on your panel, etc., you don't have those things under your control. But if these things go unnoticed, it can lead to some hotspots, some kind of faults that can again lead to a reliability or a safety concern. So can we notice it with, again, very minimal sensing and yet take some smart decisions to extract the maximum energy at a given amount of time at any practical condition? Okay, so that is something that I developed during my PhD, and my students are now taking it one step further. They are doing it completely wireless, completely automated kind of a thing. I did a wired controller, but they are making it wireless. So very exciting times ahead, I would say.
So it's a lot dependent on like efficiency of the solar panel and things like that.
Right. So we are more on the electrical side of things, the control side of things, the user interface, so to say. The material, we take it as a given. So material scientists make the panels and give it to us. Now, how well we can use them to feed our loads in the house, that's what we do.
Yeah. Speaking of energy, many people have like a lot of questions regarding like electric vehicles. Like my question here is, how close are we to getting electric vehicles whose tanks fill up just as fast as like gas tanks? Is it like really far away, or is it?
No, we are there actually. Recently, a company called Zeekr announced a 5.5 C-rate battery, which means that it can fill up to a reasonable level in just 10 minutes. Okay, if you go to a petrol pump, you would spend 5 to 10 minutes anyway, right? So we are almost there. The only issue there was the battery technology was not able to take so much power in real time, right? Because if you dump in more energy in less time, it heats up. And then again, the safety, the reliability, fire, those things become a concern. But now the battery technology is also getting there. So this Zeekr, this company that I spoke about, they are the battery manufacturers, and they claim that they are able to very fast charge their batteries. But we work on the other side, the charger side. In my lab, we develop the chargers, and we are almost there. We are able to provide high power chargers which can give that amount of power in less time. So fast charge the vehicles. But again, we had to attune everything to Indian conditions, because when they operated in Europe, in America with Tesla superchargers, their ambient conditions are 2 degrees Celsius, minus 5 degrees Celsius. What is our condition? 50 degrees Celsius. So even the industries around were telling us the chargers, the connection, it melts in Ahmedabad temperatures. So how do you make sure that does not happen? Okay, our systems are reliable for us is what we are doing.
Yeah, we're all too familiar with the temperature here.
Yes.
I want your opinion on something like we are shifting to like electric vehicles in order to make it more environment friendly and things like that. But a lot of these batteries are made up of lithium.
Yeah.
And I've been hearing, I do not have much knowledge on this, obviously, that like lithium mining itself is not really good for the environment. What's your
Right.
opinion on that?
Right. Yes, that's true. Lithium still we have found some reserves in Kashmir, in Ladakh. So more of a concern for us is cobalt. It is found only in Congo, and I don't know if I can say it online, but China has a lot of control on these reserves. So it becomes an energy security problem for us, right? So now India as a country is looking for more safer technologies which we can do in-house. For example, hydrogen fuel cells are coming up in a big way because they utilize hydrogen, which you can get from methane, from water, from so many sources. Even in terms of batteries, there are many colleagues here in the chemistry department, chemical engineering department, who are working in newer technologies for batteries, which may not need lithium or cobalt or any of those extensively heavy resource consuming mining metals. So hopefully better chemistries would come. But having said that, our research is more on the system side. We, again, just like solar panels, don't make the batteries. We use the batteries. Electrical engineers make the systems around it so that our loads can be served. So the power electronics, the AI, the BMS, anything that we make remains the same. So even though tomorrow there are no lithium-ion batteries, our technology would still be usable by the public because we are working on chemistry agnostic kind of system that we are developing to charge these batteries to make them long-lasting and reliable.
Right. So I heard you mention hydrogen. Do you think hydrogen will be one of the main fuel alternatives in the future?
Right. So near term, I see hydrogen powered vehicles coming in heavy duty. For example, long endurance, long range kind of vehicles like trucks, buses, like bigger vehicles. You will see hydrogen come into the mainstream. Batteries would continue to serve smaller vehicles like maybe bikes, two-wheelers, even smaller four-wheelers, etc. But yeah, this transition has to happen because hydrogen can give you much more energy density. So lesser space, more energy. So long range, long endurance kind of vehicles. They would in near term. In long term, how the dynamics would change, it is extremely driven by geopolitics and so many factors. So I don't want to claim something that I will repent after a few years. I don't know. But looks like this green energy transition will anyway happen. Whatever is the carrier, that is not yet certain. But I think everything will contribute. Batteries would contribute, hydrogen will contribute. But more important than the carriers, it has to be the infrastructure, the charging aspect, the safety aspect. That is where our focus is. Even if the carrier of energy changes from hydrogen to battery to whatever, are we still able to transition to green energy in India? That's our concern.
So it's exciting to hear about all these different ways for cleaner energy.
Yeah.
Are there any projects or collaborations which you're part of which you think is like closest to being implemented in the real world?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So we did a very exciting project recently. So a company came here. So battery swapping, it was it was a notion that will only be in books, etc. It will never really go into the field. But today, 1/3 of EV chargers are battery swapping stations. What does that mean? People just come with their vehicle, exchange the battery, and go with a full tank, right? So this is very fast, doesn't require an hour or whatever time. So that charging time anxiety has been solved with battery swapping. So we need both. We need charging also, we need swapping also. So for swapping, one big issue is that how do you understand the quality of the battery that you are exchanging? Right? So as a consumer, I have this concern. If I want to go for battery swapping, are they giving me the good battery? When they are taking my battery out, right, which is uncharged. So good battery means what? It should have good life left ahead of it. It should not die tomorrow. Can you quantify that? That's the question. So that's exactly what we did. We developed a very nice battery digital twin in the lab with AI, with the real data, and we were able to actually crack within 5 minutes of data, the capacity prediction, the remaining useful life prediction. So that means with very little testing at the station, you would be able to truly predict what's the quality of your battery. So this solves the fidelity issue of swapping.
Wow.
Uh-huh.
That it must feel really nice to having your research being so
Out
close to
there,
you.
yeah, absolutely.
Here's a fun one. Like, are there any misconceptions about sustainable energy which you think the general public has, which you would like to debunk?
Yeah, so one biggest issue is that people don't think that this will become mainstream. A big reason for that is probably the lobby that the oil and gas industry has been spreading. You know, that fossil fuels will remain mainstream, renewable energy is only fancy, it will be in your houses, or maybe you can have a toy car with EV, you know, things like that. But now, if you see the prices of solar energy compared to thermal energy, which is like coal based, etc., it is at par. At some locations like Rajasthan, it is even lesser, the price of solar energy compared to a conventional fossil fuel based energy. So it is actually coming mainstream, right? So this is a big misconception that renewable energy would never become mainstream. It has actually become mainstream in many places, and we are sure that it will become even more so in the coming years.
I see. So it's like a lot of politics involved in here, but let's not get into that. Here's a round all of you have been waiting for. It's the rapid fire round.
Okay.
So I'll ask you a bunch of questions. You need to tell me the first thing that comes to your mind. No second, no third. Just first thing, right?
Okay.
Favorite book or movie about science?
Interstellar.
If you could solve one global problem overnight, what would it be?
Green energy transition.
Any secret talent?
I can read minds. Just kidding.
Okay, moving on to that. Solar panels or wind turbines, which is better?
Solar PV panels, photovoltaic, because they are less intensive to maintain, very quiet, very peaceful, can just be a part of your building. Solar panels for sure.
Let's just get back to that. Reading minds?
No, I can read a room well. I mean, I can get the vibe from people if they're getting bored, or if it's, you know, I'm a professor. So.
What is the vibe of the cast for you?
They're waiting for this to end, but they're still enjoying it.
No, we are very interested. You're not good at reading minds.
Okay.
We are very interested in this. Let us shift to a more important topic now. Women in STEM, right? From your experience, what are the biggest challenges women face in this field?
I think the biggest challenge is self-confidence. I mean, they have been told so many times that maybe they're not good enough, or maybe they could have been doing something better, or you're not right for technology. So all these things just keep aside, okay? Just brush them aside and just keep moving with your force, okay? Find what's your North Star, what you want to pursue as a person in your life, and then stick to it. Don't take any stupid comments that come your way. I think that's the biggest thing. Self-confidence has to be there. The world is designed to irritate you. I always say this, okay? It is there to test you, to make you a stronger human being. So take it as feedback and move on. Don't ever get bottled up or feel like you're an imposter, you are not good enough in any way, because a fish should not be judged by the way it climbs a tree, right? You may be good at something, you may not be good at something, but learn and evolve. Yeah, I think the biggest barrier is girls not estimating their own power. Mm-hmm.
As a lot of people would say, the haters will keep on hating. So, what?
But there are also
Yeah.
people who love you a lot, right? So,
Yes.
so look at that side and move on.
What steps as we as a society can take to, make it a better space for women in the science and engineering?
Actually, just let them be. Really, we are sometimes trying to overcompensate for things, making them feel special, and in the process, we make them feel that they are not the same. So this kind of a prejudice, or, oh, you are a girl. I know, you don't have to tell me, right? So just let them be, let them do their thing. And whenever you feel there is some way you can make the environment better for them, go ahead and do it. But, girls are born leaders. They will tell you what they need. You don't have to, use your brains unnecessarily. Just support each other. Like, that's true for girls and boys, everybody.
Yeah. What is your message to young girls who are dreaming to be researchers or engineers?
if you really want to do it, nothing can stop you. That's my message.
That is very inspiring. I hope many young listeners take this advice to heart. So, Professor Bharadwaj, this has been an incredible conversation. We've learned so much about your journey, your research, and the future of clean energy. Thank you for sharing your knowledge and inspiring us with your story.
Thank you for having me. Happy
And to our
Women's Day.
listeners, thank you for tuning into our very first episode of Amaltya's podcast. If you enjoyed today's conversation, don't forget to follow us on social media at Amaltya_IITGN for updates on the upcoming episodes and events. Let's celebrate women in STEM, not just today, but every day. Until next time.